Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
See you.
This is-
How is everyone?
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Lucky to meet you.
See ya.
Good.
You want?
Nice to meet you.
Have some people in the hallway?
You want, you can pull up a chair.
Okay.
Just one?
Great.
All right, Adam,
Nope, I did not.
all right, thanks for coming.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Work. You know, everybody,
I think so.
Table.
Same thing. Good to see everyone.
Yep.
Yep. So got the slides. We'll go through the results of the audit. So we got PowerPoint slides here. We are in draft form, but we're in a position where we feel like the audit results are fair. We can present this to this group and take any questions or concerns. So page one, the products of our audit. So these will be the final deliverables. Basic financial statement. So that's the main objective of the audit, is to provide an opinion on your financials. So that's the main goal of an independent audit. We also issue a formal management letter and an auditor communication letter that will give you our recommendations, our observations during the audit, kind of the areas that you want to focus on as far as improvement, internal controls, those items. Page two, just an overview of our auditor communications. I talked about our responsibility, that's to provide an opinion. We do plan on moving forward with what's referred to as an unmodified opinion, and that covers the governmental activities, each major fund, and your aggregate, what's referred to as your aggregate remaining fund information. There is a qualification within the report about your component unit, and that's one of the Tonawanda Housing Authority, whether it should be incorporated into the financial statements. That's separate as far as the unmodified opinion on the governmental activity. That's what's controlled by the city. As far as our significant accounting policies and estimates, you're required to implement new governmental accounting standards. We worked with management as far as evaluating those, no significant changes there. And as far as your significant estimates, all within a reasonable range. The last kind of required communication is to clarify our independence from the city. So as an independent audit firm, supervisory level, right down to the staff level, we're required to be free of conflicts of interest with the city. So that's what it was what allows us to be objective in performing our audit and then ultimately providing that opinion. Any questions on those before we get into the financials? All right. Page three, financial trend, 5 years revenues versus expenditures. This is within the general fund. This is a trend that we've been talking a lot about with our other government clients. What's interesting is really where the revenues and expenditures are starting to get closer together. We're coming out of the pandemic 2020 period. Those revenues, especially from an economic standpoint, sales tax, state aid, all those revenues were spiking essentially, and our expenditures were lower because we're in at full capacity. So a lot of governments saw that benefit of those major revenue sources coming out of the pandemic, and were able to accumulate some fund balance. That did continue typically through 21, 22. Here you did have a property tax increase in 21 that was fairly significant. So that helped to essentially put you at a higher level and kind of push that what is being referred to as the fiscal cliff, pushed it a few years. So it bought you a couple more years essentially. And then you also took advantage during 2024 of the ARPA federal revenues. So those were one-time revenues that you were able to bring into the general fund.
can everybody silence their phones, please?
Because of lost revenue. So the federal government, that was the purpose of the program, was recognizing that the pandemic did impact during that shutdown period revenues for local governments. Mostly in the sales tax, the state aid areas. So this was essentially kind of that one-time chance to get reimbursed for those old lost revenues. 2024, you brought in about 1.2 million of federal revenues. That's one time. You're not going to see those again.
That was 21, you said?
That was 2024. That was the past year. Yep. So this gap between revenues and expenditures was about $1.7 million. So that is the amount your general fund increased during 2024. Well, like I'm saying, 1.2 of it is that federal ARPA. So essentially, when you think of your operating trend, you're about $500,000, really more closer to a $500,000 increase.
So we were budgeted to take money out for the general fund, so you're saying we took nothing out then?
You actually increased one
We
point
increased,
seven,
we
yeah.
didn't take any out.
Yep. Yep, and the majority of it, like I said, is the ARPA for 1.2, and then, obviously, if you're spending under your budget. You're gonna recognize those savings as well. So 1.7 increase, how does that impact your fund balance? You throw that on page 4, again, 5-year trend. We showed as components of fund balance because the restrictions do matter as far as what's available and what you can spend it on. So if you start with the different components, your non-spendable, that's in the blue, is about $2 million. The majority is prepaid expenditures. So you had some large capital items. What were the 2 big ones, right?
The pumper.
The fire pumper.
Yep.
That pumper was in the 2024 budget.
That's in the 2024, it's a prepaid expense. It will hit your 2025 budget. But we're saying you paid it. The cash went out the door, so it's not spendable at the end of 24.
So that won't have the effect on the sunset.
Yep, that's why I pulled it out of that. Yep. You got about 4.9 in a sign. The major portions there is $2 million that you appropriate in your 25 budget, help balance that. You have about close to 1.7 in a sign for workers' comp, so that's equal to the liability that we have. Yep. And then you have 600,000 for health insurance and 600,000 for retirement, so those are contingent items. From our perspective, that's a prudent use of setting aside those funds for those liabilities that could really have a substantial impact on a budget in any given year. So it's helping to smooth out a budget when you have a big year of workers' comp or retirement goes way up or health insurance. So it's a good management tool. And then what's remaining is your unassigned. So that's the only truly available portion of fund balance. Just over $10 million. About 34% of your budget, when you look at it. That puts you in a stable position. Your fund balance policy, obviously you're not at that level, your minimum of 2 months, you're above that. But I think when you look going forward, that trend line, you start to look at 2025. You're gonna probably not see that gap of revenues exceeding expenditures. That's at least what we're seeing in other governments. And we've actually started to see it at a lot of other like local cities. Where they're starting to see the decreases in fund balance in 24, in 25, some even in 23. So that, like I said, when you kind of delayed it a couple of years with some of the actions that you've taken. But that trend, it's coming where your expenditures, you're seeing it, every expenditure, major expenditure is going up. Whether it be contractual, salaries, benefits. And on the revenue side, when we talk about those major revenue sources being sales tax, state aid, and real property tax. Start with real property taxes, you're subject to the tax cap. Yes, you have the ability to override that, but New York State says you got about 2% to play with there. And then sales tax is fairly smooth right now. And state aid is flat as well. So when you look at those major revenue sources and then ARPA going away, it is going to be challenging when you look at your budgets, especially the next couple of years. Fortunately, you're in a good fund balance position.
In addition to the ARPA that was applied, wasn't there an additional increase in the state aid and mortgage tax last year as well? That was.
I think you had some.
Buffalo to the rest of the municipalities that capped out Buffalo at a certain amount.
There was an additional state aid payment that isn't guaranteed.
Adam?
It was an additional thing, and it was like 300 or 400,000.
Okay, yep, that is in there as well.
But they did specifically say, don't budget on this in the email I got.
Right.
When we got that payment.
That was
overhang, but that came with it. It was basically, do not count on this going forward. It was the one thing.
I would say that's.
And just, if I can ask one more
Yeah,
question.
absolutely.
So we discussed the 2025 amount that's including assigned balances, that's applied.
Yep.
So that was what we use as appropriation. So anything, if we were trending over budget 2025 for whatever reason, shortfall was going to return probably recurring expenses. that would affect this total balance, because we would count for X amount, if it's over, that's gonna affect us.
Sure, absolutely.
And as we're progressing to budget for this year, when we're looking at the 2026 budget, the 3.4 million appropriation. That would, simple math, all things remaining the same, would reduce that 10 million to about 7. Correct.
With no additional revenue. I mean, we're not counting on revenue.
Right, you're essentially
Yes.
saying, yeah, if we count on a pretty flat year,
Correct.
and we're
With
gonna
nothing
increase our
there.
appropriation, that comes out of that. And that
But as we just said, between the ARPA, the increase in state aid and sales taxes, we've been lucky with some one-time revenue sources over the past couple of years to keep it steady.
Yep.
And like you said, since that additional money has come in to help make small municipalities whole, that's helped us kind of push off that fiscal cliff that we've been talking about for a little bit longer.
Yep. Yeah, this was certainly a conversation that we're having at other local municipalities a couple of years ago, or mostly in 23 is when that you start to see the trend reverse. Here, it didn't quite reverse in 24 because you did have that ARPA and the additional, state aid. But it would have been a balanced year, it would have been a flat year without those. So,
Before we get into the sewer fund, if you gotta say one word that describes us in the financial situation, I would say.
right now, I would say stable. That's kind of my word of choice. But certainly, yeah, a stable position to handle the challenging budgets.
I'd rather be in the
that
position
governments
we
are.
are in. or the other ones.
Yep, you're definitely in a better position than a lot of local governments in New York State right now to kind of handle those budget challenges.
But, I mean, we're looking at taking a third, 30% of this. Save of this balance out to balance the sewer budget. That does not sound stable to me. To withdraw a third of what's in here to try to balance the budget.
But we're still not accounting for the recurring revenue covering the recurring expenses.
Yeah.
Recurring expenses continue to go up, and recurring revenue continues to remain flat unless there's other one-shot deals, unexpected revenue sources that might hit us this year.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from our perspective, we don't really opine on the operations.
Sure.
What I thought the question was your financial condition for 24.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I'm saying. In this fund balance position, you have 34% in unassigned. You have assignments that you set aside and you're able to appropriate some in your budget. That's the stable position. Going forward, certainly there's gonna be a lot of variation. So you definitely have to continue to monitor where the things are happening quickly and especially on the expense side. For local governments and certainly the major revenue sources there's not a lot of, big increases that are being projected out there. So caution is definitely appropriate.
And based on our fund balance policy, where we want to sit at a minimum of enough to cover us for 2 months, not a little bit more. So we want a minimum of about 5.1 million out of the $1 million budget.
Right.
So
Yeah, you did get there quickly, yeah.
in 2027, getting us down to seven, so it's only leaving us a $2 million safety net.
Yep.
As long as the bumper doesn't go, or an infrastructure problem or something else.
And the contract's due in 27.
One of them,
More
please.
I mean, it's gonna continue to be challenging, that's kind of the dialogue with local governments right now, but 2024 stable financial position. Kind of moving on to the sewer fund. Page 5, page 6, what I would say is a good trend over the last 5 years. 24 saw an increase of about 400,000. So the fund balance on page 6, just over 1.3 million, the best position in the sewer fund over the last 5 years. So when you look at sewer in general, those are your 2 biggest operating funds. Like I said, fairly positive there.
Positive better than stable.
What's that?
Is positive better than
Well,
stable?
I said fairly positive, so
Fairly positive, better than stable, like A+ is not as good as a double A and the triple A's and all that stuff. So it's fairly positive on sewer, but just stay like that.
Which brings up another point, our ratings, bond rating is an A. Am I correct?
I believe so, yeah, I'd have to verify the total.
Yeah,
It's not the AA that we. That's that good.
A is pretty low, right?
It's higher than the AA. which is. what
Oh,
we'll-
A is higher than an A?
Budget presentation that you probably see.
So our final observations, we talked about fund balance, planning going forward, future challenges. I think from an internal control standpoint, and we've had a lot of conversations in the treasurer's office, I think. There's still kind of cleaning up things, there's still delays in the process, obviously. From our perspective, I think having a little bit more assistance in that office would help as far as freeing up some time. I think there's a lot put on the treasurer as far as kind of catching up from implementing a new system before he was brought in and having to kind of learn that and continue to operate in all the duties within that department. So that might help things as far as, getting things closed out and getting information to this group quicker. Certainly on the bank rec side, there needs to be a little cleanup there. So we talked a lot, in our management level, we'll talk a lot about cross training, best practices there and maybe where we'd see some improvement. All in all, though, we're pretty close to finishing up. We should issue final within the next couple of weeks. And you'll have final reports to submit to the regulatory bodies and keep going with the budget process. Any questions?
I just had a couple of questions following. So if I'm not mistaken, I think our rate was like A, so an A is actually higher than A.
I believe so. I will confirm on the actual
Right.
credit rating.
That was my understanding.
Yep.
Before. And I think we had discussions in the past to get us up to an A+ or a higher rating. There were recommendations that would involve keeping a higher balance within our fund balance, so a higher percentage over that. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't give recommendations on a bond rating as far as the rating agencies, what they look at. There's a lot of different factors. That would be one of them. I would unassigned fund balance, how much of your carrying is available
Right,
versus
so that helps with
restricted.
cash flow with
Yep,
emergencies.
exactly. You have more cash flow. They would also look at some of your long-term obligations out there. Those are those estimates, those
And the
actuarial studies.
rebalances, when we-
Yep.
But I guess my question is, what's the return on investment? And if we were to bring ourselves up to an A+ rating, I mean.
Yeah, you would lower your interest a little bit. Yep.
Based on what we have bonded, would that be significant?
I don't know that it would be. I don't know that it would be significant.
Just.
I guess, you look at any savings for a local government where that it's gonna have an impact on your taxes. Yep, exactly.
You're passing along to residents. Just my last question, questions. You're in a draft stage right now. Are we it's generally behind, is this trending behind schedule, and is there a reason that it's behind schedule? And coming up. Or the final numbers.
Yeah, and I think it is a little bit behind schedule just because of those delays that I talked about as far as getting it reconciled. And I do believe when we get the information, it's quality information, it's freeing up some time and maybe even having more help in that office to delegate tasks and be able to.
So it's more of a manpower thing that's
That's what I would say.
and I'm just looking back when I was before the meeting, it's generally around this time that we have the final.
Yep,
draft,
absolutely.
final.
Nope. Yeah, we're not hiding that. There's been delays, yep.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Very much.
Let's move forward, me and,
Maybe another stuff on the chair. Hi, guys.
thank you.
Thanks for having me. All right, I have a blue folder here and it's from Lindsay. I think what I'm supposed to talk about is a playground. Is that correct? Okay. All right, so I'm here to talk about a playground. Maybe Tonawanda wants to dedicate a space where we could build a nature playground. It would not cost you any of the dollars from your general fund or anything like that. We can find the funding to get a nature playground built. Nature playgrounds are excellent, like the structure that's at the Birchfield Penny Path. Over by the Galleria Mall, it's that big like teepee thing that you can go in and it's made of trees. Or a bunch of stumps that you can jump around, with the idea being that a typical playground. Each element of that playground is designed for a very specific purpose. You know, there's a rock wall and you climb the rock wall, there's a slide and you go down the slide. It's even so specific that it tells you this is for children ages 5 to 11. Or this is for children ages 12 to 14. And so the children of those age groups they're there and they're doing those things, but they get bored with those things and they start doing other things and it becomes disruptive and destructive and dangerous. Because it's not what those things were designed for. A nature playground is different than that because there isn't a design specific thing that you do with the TP or with the logs that you could balance on or anything like that. It's just open-ended play, so kids stay longer and there's nothing that they can damage, really. I mean, it's stumps and stuff. There's also not an age limit, so then we don't have people shouting at our middle schoolers because I have a middle schooler, I have two. And my youngest one who's in 6th grade, we spend a lot of time at the playground at the elementary school because he is, you know, cognitively, he's a lot younger than his age of 10. So we spend a lot of time there and people don't yell at him because cognitively he's much younger and they don't even realize, but the 12-year-olds and stuff, they get yelled at there a lot and we need to have a place for them. They're still children. They really are. They don't go to the elementary school anymore, but there needs to be a place for them and not just them. The high school kids would love to have someplace that they could play and we have Vets Park and that's great. It's great. But it would be cool to have another play space, a nature play space destination. We can add some elements at Vets Park and then we can put some at another place that the council decides. A really great idea would be that little chunk in the block in front of Old Man River. Because there's no parking lot there, so you're looking at just grass until you get to the river walk. It's just a lot of grass. All the other blocks seem to have parking lots and we don't necessarily want kids and parking lots that close. But there's a large space there in that block, specifically right in front of Old Man River, where you would not be encountering a parking lot. And it has 7 trees, so there's already natural shade. And all we do there is just mow the lawn. That's it. We could add some nature play areas and this would not cost the city any money. We can find the money for that through the city or through COT Neighbors United if the grant opportunity requires a nonprofit lead organization. COT Neighbors United would be very happy to jump on board for that and be the lead applicant to get the money for the city to have a city playground. So that's what we are hoping, and I think that's what the idea was. Is that right?
So the idea was that, and then when I tried to present it, I was asked questions I didn't have the answer to, so I asked you to come here on behalf of the council, so any questions they have about, or any reservations they have about that idea of what you're saying. If we were standing at Old Man Rivers, it's to the left of the bike path area, so we have Bob Gregg Road between the parking lot and the bike path, that bike path that comes down, protecting you from the parking lot, and then from that bike path to the other bike path, it's just that wonderful area with those 7 trees. Yeah.
So 7 trees, which is awesome because that's shade. And we could build really cool stuff using mostly things that we already have. You know, logs and giant rock things that we can do. And it's a mulch situation, so we're not paying for rubber or that stuff like the Billy Wilson playground that cracks after 3 years. We're not dealing with that. And, you know, statistically speaking, those nature playgrounds report fewer injuries for kids. And it's a better environment for children because it's not just for the little, we have a lot of playgrounds that are just for the little kids and that's wonderful. But we still have other kids that would really like, it's a destination thing, especially because it's right there at Muds and Old Man River, and then you go down to the River Walk. So it would be great, and I know that there was concern maybe about it being so close to the water, and I would say that Tonawanda so fantastically just built a playground, you know, 8 blocks in the other direction, right there on the water. But it's one of those ones that has an age limit. It says an age on there. It says you're not supposed to be on that if you're 12. So, I mean, that's who's down there really is 12-year-olds. They go down there on their own on their little electric scooters and stuff, and they would really like to play on there. Then they get screamed at, and we all read about it on the Tonawanda community page. There's so much negativity on the Tonawanda community page about what happens in our playgrounds. And it's mostly about older kids that are not supposed to be there, but we need to have somewhere for them. And we do have that park, that's great, but it would be awesome to do a nature playground kind of a thing around here. There's all sorts of pictures. You know, I'm the stand-in, Lindsay's the lady for this, and I am just the stand-in today, because she is at like a national convention for nature playgrounds, hanging out with the president of nature playgrounds, like right at this minute. But I have all of her stuff. There's really cool elements that we could build and do, and I can leave these things for you guys if it's helpful. It's all awesome, and we can do that. Yes.
One, I just want to say Lindsay does do a great job in the driving force, and she's behind all of the play parks and the play chairman for Sioux Village United. She also did present this to the council, might have been the last administration a couple of years ago, so we could get these. I think I have that somewhere, and I'd be happy to share it with you guys. I think it's a great idea. I mean, I have a 12-year-old that gets yelled at playing on that because for some reason he's a little larger than the average 12.
Yes.
Don't know where he gets that from. But he doesn't enjoy that kind of thing, so the older kids. It just raises a couple of questions. One, there was some resistance by the former Parks and Rec person previously, just as far as where it's gonna go, who's gonna maintain it, who's gonna get the funding for it. I know at one point I had worked with Lindsay where we spoke with Senator Brian and Gavin came out to look at a couple of spots. And they were more than willing to get us the money, but there was the problem of coming with a design or proposal, and the cost of that was a little prohibitive at the time to get funding for that. So is that still a factor in it to get some of the funding, or is that something you can kind of put together for us?
We could do that.
There's-
I think
she's
she's got all the stuff here. She did most of it for the DRI thing. It wasn't a selected project for the DRI, but she did all the heavy lifting on that already. And like I said, today she's very much with the president of playgrounds, you like whatever, and that person has said, absolutely, I would be more than happy to help you guys design a thing. We can work on that together because you're cool and I'm cool. It just, you know, helpful. Yeah, I think.
With the DRI, and it was just location. Downtown wasn't a spot, but I met with her just before she left out of town. And I put her in touch with Chris Foles to find a spot up in Vets, right in the middle between the two brand new pavilions, away from other areas. And find an area and let me know the size, and we can fit it up there first. That's what she's doing right now. She said she will do it.
Yeah, that's a no cost one that she can do with stuff we already have here, which is great, one place space, but we would really like to have a full on area. Maybe down here, you could pick a different place if there's a different place you have in mind, but that block of the river right in front of Old Man River is just begging for a very cool nature playscape.
Just, I mean, I guess that was part of where I was going with the questions. If you work with Ms. Foles, to work with
Chris
with
Foles
Nate,
did-
well, with Nate and with Dave Franzek, as far as like, you know, what the resources you're gonna need to maintain that, to upkeep it. What I would want to see is some buy-in on that, on their part, that they would support it, be a part of it, so you know, everybody involved with it is into it. It's something that we're bringing for your children, because you said it exactly, there's a lot of stuff for our little kids. But as they get a little older, and my kids are in that in-between stage where they're
They
not
still
looking to-
play, they
still
play, and if we don't give them a play space, then what they're playing is how fast can we spin the spin and throw up toy before a kid flings off? Like I mean, it's just what they're gonna do, and it's kid stuff, and the kid that's flinging off says they're happy and that that's what they wanted, but nobody wants that.
But still, what we need is a drawing of size, not size wise and everything else. I see, she showed me many different ones. But I said, you need to work with Chris, go over the best part, find out where your best spot is, and give us a drawing. What is?
So that's Beth's Park, and that's fine, and what she wants to do there, I know she can do for free.
Yep.
But for this part, for what I'm supposed to sell to you guys today, is that for the grant process of seeking out funding to get the real fancy, nice play space done, the first step, just like for the pool, the first step was having the resolution passed that we're gonna do the full renovation instead of like a Band-Aid or whatever. That was the first step for that, and then we can do all the other steps and get the funding. This is the first step for this project. We need something from the council that says, yes, we are behind this. We understand that you will bring the funding for us. Here is space that we can let you use, and that's our demonstration. And that's that first piece that we need to put in the puzzle before we can do anything else.
You still need the resolution, even if it's a non-for-profit that goes for it.
It is very helpful if we have the resolution, even if it's a non-for-profit that goes for it. Alternatively, we could have an MOU between COT Neighbors United and the city that says if we find the funding, the city will allow us to use the space. But it is far more helpful to have just a resolution that says, find the funding and this is the space you can have to put the playground. Because otherwise, we're looking at changing MOUs for every single funder that we reach out to. And it's putting a lot on you guys on the back end, and we would like to make this as easy and labor less intensive as possible for the council. You have a lot of things going on. So it's just easier if you, and we can do it the other way, and I can draft up MOUs every time we're applying for something, but it really does. I don't know if you'd have to like vote on every MOU, and we're applying to 8 different places for funding, and they have all different deadlines and different requirements for what has to be in the MOU. If you are choosing instead to pass a resolution that says COT Neighbors United, if you guys can come up with the funding, the city of Tonawanda will support this nature play place in, at this location. Then that is easier, but I'm happy to do the other way. That's fine. So it's just writing letters. That's easy for me. I think that it's harder on your end for
Makes
the,
sense to do as a broad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was saying for years that, they do so much, their grassroots volunteer group. That's bringing some great events to our city for both kids and adults. It's one of the things that would be great to.
those
Yeah,
Nerf
our-
Wars,
our-
man. Have you played those Nerf Wars? Can you imagine if the team Nerf Wars takes place at a nature play space? Oh my gosh. I mean, they'll want to have those every single weekend. And as far as maintenance and stuff goes for that, I mean, right now the DPW is mowing the lawn in the area that we are looking at, and they have to do that lawn mowing. Well, this past summer, they hardly had to mow because of the lack of rain. But in an ordinary summer, I mean, my office window looks at the river. They mow those lawns once a week in an ordinary summer. And that play space would not need to be mowed. It would just have the mulch down. And so like once a year, instead of having that pile with the sign on it that says free mulch, we would put the mulch there. And that's pretty much what it is.
Over by,
Always.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't extend where the sledding hill is.
Oh, no, and we don't want to touch the sledding hill, and actually there's like a whole 2 blocks in between that. We gotta protect that sledding hill, both
I
sides.
can't see the size of looking for that.
No, both sides, it's just the block, in front of Old Man River. I counted the trees on my way here, 7. But we wouldn't want to move any of those trees. The trees are an important aspect of the nature playground. Okay, so that's what I'm here to pitch. If, our next step on our end in order to apply for funding and stuff would be either something from the common council that says, yes, on behalf of the city of Tonawanda, please move forward. That can look like anything you want it to look like. That's what we would need on our end, and then we would be more than happy to move forward and get money for this. And again, and we wouldn't be looking for money from the city for any of that. If it's an opportunity that requires a match, like the New York SMIMS project requires match, it typically for foundations and stuff like that, it's not a cash match. In-kind match is allowable, which means that the time that the DPW puts to maintaining it, all of that time counts.
The mulch.
Yeah, and that the COT Neighbors United spends running programming there. that is in kind, like all of it would just, we would easily come up with that without dipping into a single dollar from the city of Tonawanda. COT Neighbors United is just looking for a partnership with the city to be able to leverage that partnership and bring in dollars to make our city better for our families, specifically the middle school, high school age kids who need fun things to do also. That's it. Yes,
Thank
Sounds
you.
great. Thank you.
yes, thank you guys.
Thanks, Mr. Shepherd.
Anytime, sir.
All right, let's go through the agenda. On the minutes. Wow. Any questions on it? Any questions on it? Hearing none. Okay, on the bills. Who wants it? Any questions on the bills? Very good. All right. The CDBG. Did you say you got it?
I'd like that, please.
Any questions on it? Okay. Adam, on resolution 4, do we have the invoice?
Sorry, what'd you say?
On resolution 4. Do you have a copy of the invoice? For the property at 445?
Invoice.
Yeah, it's published for 3 consecutive weeks.
Oh,
You
the
have the
sale,
invoice?
I would have to go look.
Okay, can you pull that?
Yeah.
We just want confirmation that it was published for 3 consecutive weeks. All right, we'll come back to that. All right. Resolution 5, do you want to do on the council, every council, so everybody council?
Sure.
Any questions on the speaker? Okay, hearing none. Special events application. Any questions on it? Okay. Next is the block party. Yes. Question, Paul? Do we have executive?
No,
Council, do we have executive
I do.
purpose
First time.
of a particular person?
Yeah,
How long do you need?
2 minutes. Minute. Close the door and open them up again.
Okay. All right,
Stopwatch out.
all right, I'll make a motion to go in executive session for personnel of a particular person. Second by Mr. Sheasley. All those in favor?
Hey.
Okay, so it was
so if we got a few minutes, I'm more than-
9:20.
Right.
Now we're going to publish for 3 consecutive weeks. 9/23. And then 9/20, yes, for 3 consecutive weeks. Got to table this resolution. It was not published for 3 consecutive weeks.
So resend that again for 3 consecutive weeks?
I'm only seeing 9/23,
Okay.
9/30. And 9/20. So you published it 9/20, 9/23, and 9/30.
Give me a second.
Okay, you publish on a Saturday?
Yeah, they publish on Saturdays.
But those were the publication dates that
Okay.
20th, it was published on the 20th, 23rd, and the 30th in the newspaper.
Is this for 445 Ellicott Creek,
Yes.
right?
What did we have in council? And 9th and the 23rd. No, it was on the September 9th. No, we had the second and the sixth, September 2nd, September 16th for our meetings. So we
Yeah,
met,
it wasn't published.
we met on the 16th. We would have published on the 20th, that would have been for that week. 23rd and the 30th, that's why. If we met on the
I believe-
16th,
I believe it was published once. From what I can see.
It has to
I
be
got-
published for 3 consecutive weeks.
Okay, I got the email from the city attorney said pursuant to the direction of the common council at the last meeting. Attached, please find the publication notice for a direct sale of the subject property and a resolution for the October 21 common council agenda. Kindly publish the notice as soon as possible so that the council may act on this resolution at the October 21 meeting.
We've been talking about, yes, we published for 3 consecutive weeks. The
Okay,
publication that I have say it was published the 23rd and the 30th. And the 20th. Actually, no, I take this back, it was only published once,
That's what I said, yeah.
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 So we published the public hearing twice. But we
Right.
only published the notice of the sale of property once.
Yes,
on
that's
the
correct.
10th.
Yes,
No, it has to be 3
3 times.
consecutive weeks.
Got it.
we gotta start the 3-week clock over again.
Now you have to start the clock all over again, and then you have to
Got it.
publish the public hearing again.
The public hearing for the budget?
No, for the sale,
Oh, for the South.
you have to have a public hearing on the sale. We published it,
Public hearing being whatever. Notices, so if you had the public hearing. I don't know, what do you think there?
And publish it, if you 3 consecutive weeks that you're going to do it, you could hold your public hearing right before. Right before you decide on the resolution. So yes, you could do 6 o'clock public hearing. And
Okay.
7 o'clock vote. Sure.
Just gotta redo.
The code specifically requires it, and that's why it's in the resolution, it has to be published.
And then we can hold that.
Yeah.
That night.
This city has a specific provision on this position of city owned land, and we have to comply with it. We have to.
That's fine.
do you wanna tell the
Well, I can just.
Sure.
Well, no. Well, we can't start with that.
okay, Around-
Publishing, no?
no, because anytime you have a gap, you gotta republish it, it's 3 consecutive weeks.
We have a very specific provision.
Can I have copies of this?
Yeah, I was working right now.
Jim, around that one?
Yes.
And,
Just one thing,
Yeah.
there's a big to do about the monument in the back, about the Indian flag flying with the veterans monument in the back, and my understanding from past discussions, letters, and whatever to put that is for veterans only. I thought the flag was going out. So. Yeah, well, my understanding with that monument is for only veterans organizations.
Did you understand that? You or Chris, you both signed it. Do
Signed it,
you
yeah.
understand what flag was back then?
It was like Free USA or something.
Tree City USA, yeah.
Right, so it wasn't right, that shouldn't have been put up either, no one's accusing you of that. So the question is, so, at least from my perspective, when I signed onto the letter when it was brought to me, they passed it around during Haunted Harbor at Legion. Was the intent of that flag to be flown, the indigenous flag, was it the intent of it to be flown in front of City Hall?
No, because
I
there's
still
no,
don't understand why it can't. The one that's sitting up front of there has two flags on it now.
You just put it all over the American flag.
Police station.
well, that's the police, that's the police.
No, it's the city seal.
Well, the one in front of the city hall, there's the police over there. And then the one over here is the monument, which doesn't have the two rings on it. The two in the back, one was Tree City USA. So
Right.
why wouldn't you take the Tree City USA down?
But I think in talking to multiple parties on it, and again, nobody's trying to make a deal with it or stick it to you. I think what the misunderstanding was, it was discovered because it was published, because it was put up there. And that was a bit of a bone of contention that you were taking away from the monument that was there with the intention of putting the original flag. After talking to the Smolniches, she had pictures from 2010, and there was an original city seal flag. It was actually a beautiful blue flag with the white emblem on it. That was originally put there in 2010. Over the years, that one had changed, there's still the American flag. No, but there was a second city flag that was up there on the last administration that was retooling or redesigning the flag. So that was replaced with that city flag. And I believe when you started your administration, you had changed the logo of the city seal again to something else. So I don't know if that was what the. I think the bigger question is they want to know where the original flag was, how come we're not hanging it there? I think even at one point there was a POW flag, and I understand
It was not
the
there.
Tree City one
Other stuff.
was there. But I think there needs to be a conversation with the veterans of what the expectations were, what the intention of the flags that were there and what it was supposed to represent. I mean, you have monuments to the heroes. I think they want to ensure that it has the original
Let me read this for you.
flag.
It's great sadness and disappointment that I share with the community that I received a signed letter and one of the 25 signatures from the city of Tonawanda expressing displeasure over the display of they call it the Haudenosaunee flag on Friday, October 10th and Monday, October 13th. This flag was raised at the request of city town resident to recognize the Indigenous Peoples' Day. The request was supported by Third Ward Councilperson, which I talked to Sean about it, who personally helped coordinate the flag's arrival at City Hall. And endorsed by the Common Council of Police Evergreen Flag. Now, it's important to note that for the past 4 years, prior to me taking out the Tree City flag flew on the out here with mine. On a separate pole next to the American flag, no military flag was displayed or disrespected for this Indigenous flag. On the morning of Tuesday, October 14th, when the Indigenous People Day was ended, the purple heart flag, I replaced it in there. The flag of the Iroquois Confederacy, known as the Haudenosaunee flag, represents 6 nations of Iroquois and symbolizes the unity and peace it designed for connect white squares joined by white pillars or white pines. And what it does is it creates a purple field based on the Hiawatha wampum belt with a purple color derived from the wampum shells used in all their language. It is deeply unfortunate that a flag representing peace and unity has instead became a subject of division and accusations of disrespect, particularly towards all heroes monument and veterans in our community. I'd like to emphasize that the Indigenous people have played a very vital role in our defending our nation. They have served in every major U.S. conflict, often at higher rates than other demographics. Approximately 45 African or American Indians served in World War II, with about 25,000 combat vets. Many volunteered despite facing discrimination. Their service, courage, sacrifice deserve our gratitude and recognition. They too are veterans. The inscription on all Carroll's monument reads. A grateful community solemnly promises that the sacrifices of all veterans were not made in vain and that they will never be forgotten. In that spirit, we must remember that honoring one group does not diminish another. The correspondence I received, which includes signatures from 2 city council members, appears to be motivated by another folks. I don't know what. This finally is especially troubling and a reminder of urgent need for diversity, equity, and inclusion education in our community. We don't need racism. We need no place for that in the city of Tonawanda. We are stronger and we will honor all who have served, celebrate all and call home and stand united in respect, peace and understanding. This is the response I got from the indigenous people.
Well, when this monument was made, there was an agreement because what flags could fly back there. I don't have that paper. I'm going by what they told me.
I
didn't
didn't
know that.
see nothing. I don't know.
I no comment on the letter, what I'm, just as a whole, that if we use that particular flagpole for flag raisings now, we just turned that flagpole into a ceremonial flagpole. For anybody who wants to fly a flag at City Hall, they're now gonna use the monument flagpole. Which wasn't its intent, that's what that letter from the Legion is, I wasn't here when they built the monument, that letter does quote. Who was involved with the process and what their intent was when they created the monument. But now it seems like the monument's being used as a dual purpose, so. And I'm sorry, what was the reason why we can't fly them out in front of, there's a digital sign and there's a flagpole next to the digital sign.
Right.
Why can't we use that flagpole?
There's not 2 clips on it. There's one flag.
There's 2 flags on it.
There's 2 flags on it now.
But they're both, well, the monument,
No, that one's not the monument. There's the one that's out here next to the.
The digital sign is an American flag with another flag logo.
That's the flag.
behind it. So you
I
would,
believe that's the city seal flag.
I think that is.
Yeah.
We could check when we go out there,
But
but
it's the city seal flag. That was the city flag 2 years ago when I ran, because I remember taking a picture of my sign and showing.
what you said was,
Showing
that's
City Hall
all
across the
Carroll's
street.
monument. Why is it all, what can't be all Carroll's monument, because it says, a grateful community solemnly promises that the sacrifice of all veterans, so. If they're veterans, no matter what nationality you are, what's
the flag they hung it was about the holiday. It wasn't about
indigenous people.
the Indigenous people holiday. It wasn't about the Indigenous people veterans. So I'm not disputing the flag flying. I'm in favor of it. We should fly, anybody who requests a flag to the mayor's office to be flown should be able to do it on the City Hall
The
flagpole.
biggest misconception that was taken by that letter was the fact of, did anybody know what was on that pole when I pulled it down? Tree City USA.
Which it wasn't supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be. So that's why.
That's an agreement.
Right, there's an agreement when they put
I
it
understand,
up.
Disagreement?
it was
It was
Ron
sold.
Pelosi's possession.
Right.
Is what I'm done.
So
Right.
it should be filed with the city clerk if it's an agreement. Mr. Clerk, can you go through DocuWare
Yes, ma'am.
and find that agreement so that we
Okay.
can all see that?
But the original question, why can't we just use the flagpole in front of City Hall?
I don't know that one. We looked at that one and I already had the two on it and the one in the back was Tree City USA. Then why would you?
But I get this, I'm not trying to make, of all the things I make issues with, I'm not trying to make an issue with it, I'm just saying, going forward, can we just use the one in the front, and that'll solve all the problems? We just say, whenever someone comes to us, whenever a group comes to us and asks to fly a flag, and we agree to it, it goes in the front of the City Hall.
I
They
know,
all
always
see
the
it.
one in the back with a Purple Heart flag. Now that one's not removed.
That's regardless, I think that's a different conversation that needs to be had with the veterans to understand what their expectations are to have on that flag. And to respect their wishes on the monument. Nobody's arguing the fact that we shouldn't honor our Native Americans. I think it was a great idea. I don't even think Mr. Smolish, when he reached out to me, he has no issue with that. He had served with Native Americans.
Yep.
His problem is not with a Native American flag being hung out there. He respects that. He thinks it's great. They've served our country well. His question was, why was the flag ever replaced up there? Albeit to his knowledge, he doesn't know what one was
4 years
replaced.
that one stayed up back.
Okay.
That's all.
But I guess what he's saying is there maybe needs to be a conversation as to what flag should go there. This isn't a question about whose flag is hanging there. I think it's a question of the original intent of the monument. And to Mr. Fisher's credit, in my understanding too, was that it was going to be hung up front. And if I misunderstood that or misinterpreted our conversation, I was happy that we were hanging the flag for the Native American. We did one to thank Stacy that was here. I think it was a great thing that we did that. But again, the monument flag is over here. There's a flag right here in the front of City Hall that our residents and our people that visit us drive up and down on Niagara Street and come by it. I think it would have been a great sentiment and a great amount of respect to our Native Americans if it was hung under that flag. There was a second spot underneath it. I believe it's a city seal flag. I don't understand why it couldn't have been hung
To
there.
me, the simplest thing was take down trees in the USA. That's the simple.
I'll agree with you on that. I will agree with you on that. But going forward, can we just use the front flagpole?
Well, I'd rather converse with the veterans first, so now when I take a look and see, I didn't see nothing of that.
There you
Yeah,
No, I see it.
that's a great, see,
Yep, perfect.
Mountain
anything else?
Natural playground. When I brought the issue up before, there was questions. Amanda has come to discuss it. Hopefully everyone's questions have been answered. Everyone feel that they're satisfied with the questions and answers they have.
I just want to double check with the city attorney on what we've designated, just to make sure we dot our i's and cross our t's.
As far as a location,
As far as we designate parkland, so I want to make sure that if we put a natural playground in there, that constitutes what we've designated. So we just have to dot our i's, cross our t's, so.
but other than that question, but as far as what, there was safety concerns, there was financial concerns, all that was answered. Everyone's satisfied then from Amanda? Okay. Next, executive, when we go to executive, why do we do it right in the middle? And then we ask, it's even on the last resolution, can we please hold executive at the end? And then lastly, the informal. It has come to light with different people talking in different venues that it seems like the majority of us are in favor of holding the informal in the large caucus room. So we can accommodate all the crowds and people that can hear us.
Not what I heard.
You guys aren't in favor?
I just explained when Mr. Simon had asked why we do that is at one point we did move out there. We moved out there during the pandemic because it was recorded. Everybody sat out there. There was feedback from people that we talked to from discussions like Drescher and Malecki, from people that we have conversations with about moving forward. It's a conversation, it's a caucus room. It's conducive to having a conversation. The feedback from people that stood out in front of these big desks, we're all standing above them, because they felt like they're on the position. It doesn't open itself up to conversation. Even when we talk about things with the city treasurer and our building inspector, they have a conversation and hear about things moving forward. It's a little more, it's a way to talk about things and have an open conversation. Whereas when you're standing out there, you have a person standing out in the middle on display in front of a bunch of people sitting up on a high desk, and it's intimidating. That's the feedback that I have. I don't care one way or the other, but I think we're gonna have an informal session and separate that out from a regular council meeting, that it should be open for conversation. I'm not gonna be on the council next year, so I think that's a decision for the rest of the people that are. Make that decision and open it up, but if we do that, I think we should make sure we have good mics, we have good recordings, we have something out there to have it on record. Yeah, again, I have no dog in this game.
Council President, with all the respect and respect of time, can you poll the council so we can ask if they would be in favor of, before I write a resolution to amend the rules of order to add the informal in the caucus room, can we just poll to see if we would have a majority? You would say yes, I would say courtroom.
I mean, different.
I'm here.
You're here.
Formals should be,
I'd say courtroom. I like that out there.
So is that something I should look at, right? I mean,
I think we've got 4 more meetings in this.
well, that's, well, 5, because you got the public hearing. We have a public hearing on the 28th, and we got,
public hearings out there.
okay, so then we got 4 more meetings, right? By the time I write it, pass it, you got 2. So you got 2 in December. So this should be,
Typically, you have low volume attendance in December.
so this is something for more of, the receiving of the council in January. where it is. Okay, so then that's over for the year then. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
John,
I'm not listening.
Mayor?
Yes, so we are submitting a grant for Eastern Parks, and we understand it, about 14,000. To the bathroom, for Eastern Park. If you come down the DOT, they finally, Jim, heading south on the Twin City River Highway, we got 2 signs on each side saying, light ahead.
Right.
So the people hopefully will slow down a little bit. Trunk or treat, we'll talk about that later. Also, the John Barnese, we received a $500,000 check, which will cover the bathroom here. We're redoing the bathroom here, we're redoing the bathroom at Veterans Park, because so I didn't want to go in, you know, they're already break it there, so. And the rest of it, other 100,000 is 2-2, the other 100 is going to satisfy Sean the balance on the flag. So we're short on that, so that's what I think, we just got it, and it was really good. The last thing is, we got the Blu-ray signs that talked about coming, and what they are is about yay big, or post on the ground, and what it is basically letting know that this Blu-ray trail, it runs all the way through, Tonawanda and up and through towards Albany, so we're gonna be identifiable, with verbiage on it, and we're gonna put 3 of them in the city. One in the park, one at, City Hall, and one over in, on East, Niagara. So they'll be going up, so you see them going up, you know, they're Blu-ray signs. Will be, it just talks about the history, of the Tonawanda. And, that's all I got.
I just kind of circle back to one thing. Just as a compromise of doing it in here, man, this was a proof of concept of donated hardware. It's recorded, it's here. Mr. Simon did make the suggestion that if we are gonna keep it in here, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to put a TV and broadcast it outside so people in the hallway could see it. I just want to say that's not a huge investment, an LG TV that can sit out there, mirror the screen that's here, $200. And have it hung, but it's putting the current house. Just offering that.
I think it's
solution.
extremely generous of you to do that for us.
The urban initiative money that we have gotten from Mr. Barnizio over time, I mean, that's something that some funds could be used to make an investment in technology here. I mean, you've got a couple different things there. And yes, I would be more than happy to help out with that process.
Right, that one part, man.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn our informal, go into our formal. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Shiza. All those in favor?
I see you're not doing it again.
Not donating TV now.
Please remain standing. Thank you. You may be seated. Communications from the mayor and officials and correspondence have been ordered and filed. I'd like to make a motion to suspend our regular proceeding rules to allow for the DEC to provide an informational session and a presentation on the bait and shoot program following our formal. Do I have a second?
Question,
Yes.
will the public be able to ask questions during?
Yes.
Yes, I will second.
All right, seconded by Mr. Fisher. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Teasley. Fisher.
Aye.
Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Mylum. Cook.
Aye. Just so the public is aware, we'll go through our normal proceedings, and then I'm assuming many of you are here for the bait and shoot program. At that time, after we finish with our normal proceedings, at that time, the DEC will make their presentation, and you can come up, ask specific questions. We will limit that to 3 minutes, just so we allow everybody else to get through that. And just be cognizant, I'm told that the microphone up there may not be 100% functional, okay? We'll now take comments on by the public on the resolutions. For those that are joining us in person, please approach the microphone. For those that are joining us for those that are joining us virtually, there's a spot for you to raise your hand and the clerk will call upon you. All right, hearing none, let's proceed.
Resolution number 1, sponsored by Councilmember Sheasley.
Do we have a second? I gotta go back, sorry. I apologize. Let's call this and then I'll go back. Is there a second on this? No.
I'll second.
On the minutes? Okay. Mr. Rautenstrau, comments or questions? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Teasley.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Mylum. Rautenstrau.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted. I apologize. I'm turning it back over to the mayor for his Veteran of the Month presentation. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. We got 3 of them tonight. Kind of excited about that. Kenneth Barnett is the first one. Served in the United States Army during the Korean War. the Third Infantry Division, 65th Infantry Retirement Regiment, serving from 1952 to 1954. He held the rank of corporal and earned the following medals: the Korean Service Medal with a Bronze Service Star, Combat Infantry Badge, United Nations Service Medal, and the National Defense Service Medal. Ken was honorably discharged in 1954, and Ken, at the age of 93 years old, was married for 66 years to his late wife Jean. Together, they were proud parents of 4 children and many grandchildren. Ken also was honorary member of the Union Hook and Ladder here in the city of Tonawanda. Michael Messina, grandson of Kenneth Barnett and the son of Kathy and Tony Messina, is the second generation to serve in Korea. Michael honorably served in the United States Air Force from 2004 to 2012. He held the rank of senior airman. Michael was stationed at the air base in South Korea and with the 51st Communication Squadron and the air base in Italy, the 31st Communication Squadron. He completed the deployment to Qatar and in Kuwait, being forwarded to deploy in Iraq twice and in Afghanistan once during that deployment. He participated in parts of the battles at the Sadr City and the second battle at the Ramadi. After active duty, Michael completed his reserve time at the Niagara Falls Air Force Base. With his 914th Airlift Wing, Michael received the following medals: Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Service Medal with Gold Border, the Air Force Achievement Medal with Oak Leaf and the Korean Defense Medal, Long and Short Tour Medal, Air Force Longevity, and Outstanding Unit Award for the 914th Airlift Wing. And last we have Douglas Urban is currently serving in the United States Army. He currently holds the rank of captain. Douglas has been stationed at Camp Humphrey, South Korea, with the 2nd Infantry Division at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and with the 82nd Airborne Division. Douglas also completed a deployment while stationed at Point Bragg in Kuwait. After arriving in Kuwait, he was forwarded deployed to Northern Iraq for 9 months. Douglas has since completed his active time duty, is now completing his reserve time here locally in Amherst, New York, with the 98th Training Division. Captain Urban has received the following medals: Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Korean Defense and Service Medal, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon, and Operations Inherent Resolve Medal with Star and Combat Action Badge. Douglas currently resides in the city of Tonawanda as a member of the City of Tonawanda Police Auxiliary. Thank you to Kenneth, Michael, and Douglas for your honorable service to our country and to both the United States and the city of Tonawanda. So if you come up, please. Congratulations, both. Congratulations. Congratulations. And here's the. Now, we also have one with all 3 of your names on it, which will be out in the front corridor. We'll be there for a month until the next. Yep. Month.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
no, I apologize. Thank you for reminding me. All right, we'll proceed.
Madam President,
Mr. Rounstraw.
I make a motion to waive the readings of resolutions 2 through 6, 7, 8, 9.
Can you modify that to 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7? Resolution 4, we have to go through the formalities of tabling it.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, we have a motion on the floor to waive readings of 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7 by Mr. Rounstrau. Please call the roll.
Teasley,
Aye.
Fisher. Rounstrau.
Aye.
Mylum. Cook.
I declare waiving the readings of 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. We'll proceed.
Thank you. Resolution number 2 sponsored by Councilmember Mylum.
You have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sheasley. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Teasley. Fisher.
Aye.
Rounstrau. Mylum. Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 3 by Councilmember Rounstrau.
I'll second. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Sheasley. I'm sorry, I didn't hear anything.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Rounstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted. Mr. Clerk, I'm going to make a motion to table resolution 4 on the basis that it was not published for 3 consecutive weeks. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Mylum. Please call the roll.
Sheasley.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Rounstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution tabled.
Resolution number 5 by the council.
Seconded by the council. Comments or questions?
Quick comment, Madam President.
Mr. Rounstrau.
Thank you. I just want to thank our city. Getting us forward so we can continue to work on the grant. Appreciate your diligence, your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Rounstrau. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Sheasley.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Rounstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 6 by Councilmember Mylum.
I'll second. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Sheasley.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Rounstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted.
Resolution number 7 by Councilmember Fisher.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sheasley. Comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Sheasley.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Rounstrau.
Aye.
Mylum.
Aye.
Cook.
I declare the resolution adopted. At this time, we'll now take comments by the public following the resolutions. For those that are here in person, please approach the microphone. For those that are joining us in person, there's a spot for you to raise your hand. Please do so and the clerk will call upon you. Okay, hearing none. Mr. Sheasley.
Saturday night was phenomenal weather with a phenomenal crowd down on Trunk or Treat. It was unbelievable the amount of people. It was fantastic. Great thing. Also to our city engineer that had to work his butt off the last few days to try to get this pool thing in. So thank you very much, sir, for your hard work. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Sheasley. Mr. Fisher.
For this week's Chris Fisher Gives Back, I went to Big Mike's Food Pantry, care of Carly. Do a great job. Holidays are coming up. Forget those in need for donations. I also like to end with a quote. No one else spends someone else's money as carefully as they spend their own. Next Tuesday, the 28th, we're having a public hearing on the budget. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, come out, tell the council, tell the mayor what you want to see done. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rounstrau.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, just thank you again to our city engineer, Jason Delmonico, for working through the seeker before pool, and seeking the grant money. So, after talking to Jason, our whole week in the United States office to get this. So, thank you. Additionally, I'd like to thank Amanda Shepard for coming to talk to us. Second time, that I had the privilege of hearing about this nature playground. I'm glad it's back on the table. I look forward to seeing it come to fruition once it goes through our lawyers, and ensures that it meets our requirements for this park. Just on that note, I remember the last time it was presented, there was an appointment of Lindsay Chelsea to the playground committee. I know there were some meetings, there was some conversations with our parks department, and there's just a lack of participation and some input. I'd love to see that come back and that input from them into what we can do better for our parks, for our recreation. I think there's a lot of great ideas about that's great input that could add value to our recreation activities for our kids. Finally, I just want to retouch, and we talked about it in the informal. A lot of people have been talking about it. There's been some conversations on through the year and into the budget. We've been waiting on this final audit to see what our numbers for 2024. Just to reiterate what I want to thank Director Malecki for getting it to us in time for discussing the budget. But just want to make a point of what we already talked about. We're looking at a balance in 2024 of $10 million. Yes, it's gone up. I want to reiterate the point that it's gone up because we've had a lot of one-time revenue sources. We've been lucky we've got to this point. If we are running into 2026 with the $3.4 million allocation as is on the budget presented by the mayor, that brings that number down to $7 million, less than $7 million. Still a little bit of a buffer, but you're only looking at a $2 million buffer over what we wanted to have as on a $31-32 million budget that's increasing every year. It doesn't leave us a lot of room. Our last treasurer, this treasurer, has been warning us not to continue to pay to cover that gap between recurring revenue, recurring expenses with one-time revenue sources. Again, just great things on the horizon, but not enough to cover that gap. We've been lucky. I just hate to see this can keep getting pushed on the road. I continue to say that we should be budgeting it properly, matching the revenue with the expenses. And if we do have a surplus, better way to save on tax money is to pay for one-time expenditures like a pool, like a fire truck, which we did. Capital improvements to our city that we're bonding, paying extra interest on. That in itself is going to cause savings or result in savings to our taxpayers long term. Better our city. Right now, we're not facing the fact that there's a huge gap that we're not going to make up anytime soon. I don't want to see us get to a point where we're painted into the corner of having to reduce services to our community that we rely on, or substantial tax rate. Last council meeting, when I asked our city treasurer Adam what that $3.4 million equates to, we don't take that appropriation, it equates to a 24% tax increase. Our taxes aren't raised, we're not paying it, but our costs have gone up by 24.5%. At some point, there's not going to be that money in the reserve to cover it. It's a fiscal clip that we've been talking about. We're going into 2027 with a big number that we have to do. So as we move to the final passing the budget, I hope everybody takes that into consideration. And I hope whoever's sitting in these seats in the next administration takes this into consideration as well. It's not leave us hanging with huge tax increases or risks of lost services. And I just want to thank our veterans, honoring them. Thank you very much for your service. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Mr. Nylam.
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to thank the veterans that were here tonight. I've said it before, it's one of my favorite things that we do here. And I think it's a great program. It's great to learn about everybody in our community that has served and what they've done for us. So thank you to them for coming. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Nylam. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to the veterans. We appreciate you coming in. Family of 3, that's awesome. We thank you for your service. We got trunk or treat was awesome. We guessed about 1,500 to 2,000 kids down there. It was a great organized day until the fire alarm went off at the one business on Main Street, but it woke everybody up. Trick or treat next week is 5:30 to 8:30 for Halloween, so everybody understands it. And the other one is I want to thank our Parks and Rec, especially our parks. I did not have one phone call this summer. I know the grass didn't grow that well, but you know what? Not one complaint from the Parks and Rec Department. To me, that says a lot. It says a lot for the people that are managing it. They did a great job, and I want to thank them for a good summer. It was fun. And I want to thank the zoning board for the time they put in and did their due diligence for 105 Mill Street. It wasn't easy, but they came up, they did 3 meetings, they did 1 visit to another municipality, and they also said at the end of 1 year, we'll revisit it and see if there's something that we can talk about, correct or fix. I thought that was a good thing on their side. On their side was it was good. 87th annual meeting of the installation of officers for the Chamber of Commerce is coming, honoring the Citizen of the Year and also Business of the Year and Not-for-Profit of the Year, and that's going to be November 5th. So if anybody's interested, call the Chamber of Commerce. And the other thing is that, you know what, this is the schedule. This is how much we've been going up every single year. Every single year, our general fund has been going up. Not only do we pay 1.1 and took it out and put it in restricted, we also went up $1 million. And also, we budgeted to take 2.8 million out, we took 0. So you know what, is it coming? We're gonna work very hard. And my plan and everybody's plan on this council is for revenue. That's how we're gonna do it. And that's how, I'm sorry, the glass to me is half full. And I want to make sure through revenue that we meet what we need to do. So you don't lose your services here in the city of Tonawanda. So, Madam President, that's all I had.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo the sentiments of my colleagues up here. I'd like to thank our veterans for their service to our country and our city. Well-deserved recognition. I want to recognize the Boy Scouts who are in attendance for our council meeting this evening. I know they've been here since about 6 o'clock, so thank you guys for coming. They actually had to attend a council meeting as part of their merit badge and for their advancement. So I hope you learned something. Jason, I want to thank you for your extra hours you put into the secret resolution. I know you were burning the midnight oil on it. I certainly appreciate all you did for that. I'd like to thank Drescher and Malecki for presenting the 2024 audit results to the council. As they said during the informal, our city's finances are stable and we're in much better position than other municipalities. And that's a hats off to the mayor, the department heads, the council, the treasurer for all their efforts in making sure that our general fund is heading in the right direction. Unfortunately, resolution number 4 had to be tabled this evening as we failed to publish the direct sale for at least 3 consecutive weeks. It was only published once on 9/20. So as a reminder, Mr. Clerk, please publish the direct sale for 445 Ellicott for 3 consecutive weeks so the council can move forward with that direct sale.
Yes, Madam President.
With that said, I'd like to turn it over to the mayor, who has arranged for the DEC to come this evening.
Great, we've got some concerns from public and some citizens, and you know what? I talked with Ryan, and Ryan Rockefeller said he'd be really happy to come in and do an educational piece on some of the procedures and where we should go from here moving forward. And I thought it'd be a great idea to have him come in, and he asked for a PowerPoint. He said it's easy to teach it through there. Ryan, it's all yours.
Yeah, you might just want to come up to whatever's easier for you. There's microphones here. This can stretch, yeah. Whatever's easier.
Yeah, there's one of those.
I don't know if that's
Well,
working
we'll find out.
properly,
We'll find out.
but we will.
Sounds like it is.
Yeah, it sounds like it's on.
It's
Yep.
perfect. Thank you, Ryan.
All right, well, yes, the mayor asked me to come and talk a little bit about year and year management. I guess I'll say something real quick about myself. I grew up down in western New York in southern tier, Allegheny County, so kind of grew up bushwhacking and running around with deer my whole life. So near and dear to my heart, I am the big game biologist for Region 9 DEC, so that covers the 6 western counties of New York State, so Niagara, Wyoming, Allegheny, and top one, Erie and Cattaraugus as well. I've been with the department for, oh boy, I think since like 2009. I've been in the big game biologist role since 2016, so I've experienced a lot, but I have a lot to learn, of course. So a couple disclaimers. I'm going to talk about deer management biology and options that are available for communities to address issues, but I am by no means advocating one way or the other. I'm here to kind of lay it all out there for everybody, so you can all make your decision as a community. So my role is to try to help educate and then facilitate, as it's pretty much my job. So to start with, I guess I'll just mention that deer are a very important resource in your state. I hope you all like to see deer. There's a lot of people who love to view deer, to go out and watch other wildlife, watch deer, and it's something about having a large mammal like that on the landscape that we often take for granted. Talk to people from Europe and come over, and they cannot get over the fact that we still have these large mammals that essentially are wild. They don't have that. They haven't for a long time. So they're very important. They're valuable to us. They generate some income. They generate over I think it's over $1.5 billion they've been in revenue, direct and indirect revenue to the state. But with that said, they also cause a lot of issues as well. As we know, thousands upon thousands of deer vehicle collisions, and those are just the ones that are reported every year. Millions and millions of dollars in agricultural damage, and that's not to mention the residential damage to landscape plants, which I'm sure we're all aware of, home gardens, and then just our forests in general, browsing, which we started to realize in the last few decades. So real briefly, I'm going to try to touch on a couple of these. Well, these are kind of my topics here. A quick history of whitetail in New York State. I think it's good to have kind of that background, so we kind of come at this situation from the same angle. You can't really manage a species if you don't know a little bit about their biology and ecology. And then we'll look at some of the management options that we have and tools, and then how it might be applied in a community deer management program. I'll put a plug out for this little short journal article that you can find on the DEC website. It's pretty interesting. You can find it on the website, the link down at the bottom. It's on the history of the whitetail deer in New York State, and it kind of runs you through from colonial time, pre-colonial times, up into whenever it was written. I believe right in the, I can't remember now, it's some copyright on there, but I mean, it's been out for a while, so it's a little out of date as far as where it ends, but it's really interesting. So real quickly, obviously, some of us might know, some of us don't know, but the Northeast was primarily full growth forest. That was our landscape. Old trees, big trees, dark, dense forests. And that in and of itself probably limited deer to a certain degree. On top of that, we had apex predators, we had wolves, we had cougars, we had indigenous people that were hunting deer for food. And so those things combined really kept deer numbers in check. As we move into the colonial period, the early colonial period, settlers started clearing lots of land and opening up the forest. And that was a good thing for deer. Deer thrive on these openings and the early successional habitat, which is your shrubs and your young trees. We also removed predators at that time that were competing with us for their resources and with our livestock. So we removed the wolves, we removed the mountain lions. And so essentially the deer population was able to really thrive and grow and expand in densities. Get into the late colonial period and into the 1800s, and well, we realized that there's some revenue to be made on these deer. There's a market for the venison. The buckskin industry was pretty big. So we started to really harvest and kind of unregulated harvesting of deer technology advanced to the point where we could really clear the land off very quickly. Agriculture really expanded. We had a lot of really large farming operations from the Lake Plains all the way down through the southern tier. There wasn't a lot of forest left when we were done clearing the land for agriculture. So by 1860, in Western New York, there essentially were 0 deer in Western New York in 1860. So some people realized that might be a problem. We like to see deer around, so there were some laws that were enacted. Coming into the 20th century, only 50 years or so later, some of those less fertile farmland started to be abandoned. Started to revert back into a natural cover type, young early successional habitat is what we call it, which is your shrubs and your saplings, which is what deer like to feed on. Now we still have the lack of the predators other than humans, so it created this really great situation for deer to rebound and flourish and explode essentially. So 100 years after that, now we have lots of deer. We have lots of hunting seasons and opportunities. We've realized we now have some areas that have overabundant deer issues, and we're realizing that it's having an impact on our forest as well now as they kind of overbrowse that habitat. So that's a little bit on the history, and it's good to know that for context. Like I said, to know a little bit about the ecology and the biology of deer will help when we want to try to implement some management strategies. So if you understood from the history, deer obviously adapted and kind of went along with predators, since the beginning of time. So they really have adapted to kind of outcompete those mortalities, those predation events. We go from 2 deer to 40 deer in 7 years, if you do the math here. In a real life scenario, we might be able to double the deer herd in 3 years. So what that tells us if we're trying to manage a deer herd is that 30 to 40% of a deer herd, of its individuals, has to be removed annually to maintain a stable population. So if you removed what's in that little rectangle there about every year, you're going to maintain a stable deer herd. That seems that's a wow factor for me at least when I realized that. But if you think about it, right after the fawns drop in the springtime, fawns are born. If you could count how many deer you had, take away 30 to 40% of them, and at that time, then everything survives to the following fawning season. You went back and counted them all again, you'd have the same number of deer essentially as the year before, if you removed 30 to 40% of them. So that's something to always keep in mind. The reason they can do that is because females can reproduce in their first year. They synchronize their breeding and their fawning for the most part. There's a few cycles they go through, but 201 days from breeding in the fall, they drop their fawns and essentially flood the market with fawns for the predators that are out there. So the coyotes that we have, they can take fawns and black bears and maybe a bobcat here or there, a red fox, if he's lucky, if he finds a newborn fawn. But they can only take out so many of those in that 2-week time frame before the fawns are up and faster than those predators. So that's kind of how they can beat the predation, I guess I would say. Typically they have twins, sometimes triplets, after their first year of fawning, and so a 10-year-old doe might have contributed 18 deer to the population at that time of life. So they've adapted to survive in the environment as well. They're what we call browsing generalists. So they get a diversity of foods, and it's because they're ruminants that they're able to do that. The microbes in their stomach can kind of change over time and helps them digest more efficiently whatever the food source currently is. So I guess a little side note, when people just take a bucket of corn and dump it out in the middle of winter time for the poor starving deer that hasn't ever consumed corn, they're probably going to kill that deer because its stomach hasn't generated the bacteria to process that corn. It's probably been on woody browse all winter. So the minute it fills its stomach with corn, it dies of what we call rumen acidosis, and actually I just got a necropsy report of a doe that died of that, just last month. Let's see here. So, as with all ruminants, when we have cows and things that chew their cud, a lot of their food is low in nutrients. Essentially, it's got a lot of fiber in it. So they spend a lot of energy to break that down, which means they need to consume more food. So a good rule of thumb is 1 ton of feed per year, 2,000 pounds of feed per year, 3 to 6 pounds per day. So if you were to walk around your neighborhood with a 5-gallon bucket and start snipping off the ends of little shoots and things and fill that bucket and weigh it 5 pounds, that's what a deer is consuming on a daily basis. So what that all adds up to is that they're designed to survive. They're designed to thrive, to compete predation and mortality. Left to their own, that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to see their ecological carrying capacity, and maybe pertinent to what we're here talking about today, they can exceed the social carrying capacity of an area, which means there's more deer than what we in society want or can tolerate. So a little bit on this, the conflicts and the damage that deer cause. In an urban suburban environment where there's no other formal form of, I guess, mortality for deer, the #1 source is vehicle collisions, believe it or not. It's hard to believe that, but what else is killing them? Well, what else? I mean, some disease, some starvation, but vehicle collisions is very effective, unfortunately, at removing deer from the population. So we have a deer management plan that was put in place back in 2021, and just making it, I guess for your awareness, you can look it up if you haven't read any on it before. But it addresses these topics: population management, trying to manage populations so that they are appropriate for human and ecological concerns. So promote hunting and recreation. Recreational hunting as a management tool that can be used where it's available. Try to address conflict and damage management, provide tools to communities, landowners to do that. Provide education to stakeholders, constituents, and to promote deer habitat and just open space in general. And operational resources as well. So the tools that we have at DEC sort of available to us to help communities and state all the way down through to the property level is kind of laid out here on this little graph. At the top, you start with recreation, just general recreational hunting, and applied across the state, it has some benefit. We can get more specific with different seasons and specific antlerless seasons to try to, go into an area, what we might call it the wildlife management unit, which is just an area a geographic area we've designated to have focused deer management and or specific site-specific deer management in that area. So we could propose an early antlerless season. We've done that in a lot of parts, especially in Cairns Lake Plains. There's urban deer hunts. There's a deer management systems program, which gets more antlerless tags into private landowners' hands or municipalities' hands during the hunting seasons. But hunters would harvest more antlerless deer. Then we have deer damage permits at the bottom. This is ECL 110907-5B I have highlighted there because in our neck of the woods up here, these are all kind of off the table for us. So we are in what we call Wildlife Management Unit 9C. And it's this black zone, and there's a conservation law that prohibits big game hunting within 9C. For some reasons, rightfully so, but it's only one of a couple in all of the state that completely outright bans essentially big game hunting. Other parts that there's just archery only, or and things like that, but that entire blacked out area is close to big game hunting. So it takes all those other options off the table. But there are some other things that besides deer removal that can use to a degree to help. And, you know, we call it vulnerability reduction. So we have these are our two kind of labels, I guess you could call it, vulnerability reduction and population. And as I mentioned, two of these population reduction tools are off the table, but we still have the one there. This community deer management guide, you can find this on our website as well, and it's a pretty thick document. It can provide communities with a lot of information they can look at and reference, so I encourage everyone to take a look at that. So vulnerability reduction, what can we do in this sense? Well, education, we can educate our folks on tick bite prevention and tick-borne diseases, deer-resistant plantings, and I say that tongue in cheek. You know, we can try to educate people on what the harm is in feeding wildlife and feeding deer, especially in urban environments, which really just habituates them to human, right? And then maybe educating folks on deer crossing signs and trying to get them to maybe pay a little more attention in those areas or put more of them up where you know that there are a lot of deer people collisions. We have deterrence. So we have education, we have deterrence, and some of these work, some of them don't, some work for some people, none of them work for some people. But there are some things that people try to use to deter deer, to kind of prevent those negative impacts. And there's motion devices, there's sirens, cameras, there's dogs. Those are just some options that individuals could use on their own properties. I'm sure a lot of you have tried all of them or some of them. And some might claim they work and some might claim they don't. Yeah, exclusion would be another way we can reduce our vulnerability to impacts. And obviously an 8-foot fence isn't very, doesn't look very nice. It's probably against local codes up here and it's very expensive. So that's probably not an option. 4-foot fencing. I always tell people fencing is better than fencing. Yeah, I know deer can jump over a 4-foot fence, but they're less likely to do that. They can just take the easy path. And obviously wrapping plants. And I know some of these are not maybe they don't look great, but it is a tool that you can use, and it's all balancing at what you're willing to tolerate with what it looks like compared to not having plants at all, maybe depending on the winter and the severity of the deer burns. I throw this in there. Deer will try anything once, and they might come back over and over to try it once over and over. So there are some things that are less preferred by deer. There are some ornamentals that are less preferred by deer, but obviously they will try anything once. And some deer, like people, might like certain plants more than another deer. So it's really tough to truly say something's deer resistant, but there are things that they will tend to avoid. So that was our vulnerability reduction. A lot of you probably already educated on yourself on a lot of those topics. This one might be the one that you're more focused on tonight and want to learn more about, and it's population reduction. And so I had some other slides in regards to recreational hunting, but I took those out because really this is what we're left with up here. Deer damage permits, as we call them, or DDPs. In a deer damage permit issued to a municipality gets lots of other names. It gets bait and shoot, it gets cull, it gets sharpshooting, it gets lots of names, but the formal name that we would use is a deer damage permit. It's pretty straightforward. They're usually issued when hunting season's not possible, or if it's not sufficient. Often issued outside, or operated outside of a hunting season, but it doesn't have to. And it is definitely a tool that immediately produces a local deer. It can be done by volunteers, it can be done by professionals, it can be done by law enforcement. Really, it's up to a community and working with myself to come up with those permit conditions, what the scenario would be. It's very flexible. One option that's not often thought of, but if discharging of firearms or taking deer with other implements, that bow and crossbow is a concern. There's a few, not many, but there are some communities which have implemented what's called capture and euthanize program, where they actually trap the deer and mainly euthanize them safely on site without without, firearms or things like that. And it's an annual application. And every year it's kind of you reevaluate each year, you submit your reports, you look at your complaint, you look at your deer vehicle collisions, and you do some herd monitoring or some vegetation monitoring in your parks, your landscaping, and see how much it's working. The last thing I'll mention about it is that this isn't something that a municipality, community just jumps into. It's not like, tomorrow you make a decision and then you're gonna implement it next week. There is some development involved, there's some thought that needs to go into it. And to ensure that that's happening, we require that a deer management plan be written and put in place. It doesn't have to be a novel, it doesn't have to be a PhD thesis, but anything like that, but it needs to be organized, it needs to show your goals, it needs to show your objectives, how you're gonna monitor for success. I always get asked about reproductive reduction, which is a kind of a one step down from herd reduction. And there's a couple different options out there. There's what we call surgical sterilization, there's immunocontraception. Surgical sterilization, you literally have to get every deer in hand, you're gonna perform an ovarectomy or tubal ligation. You do mastectomies, 2 on the bucks, but you miss one buck, that one buck can breed every single doe that you have, so it's not really an option. And surgical sterilization can be used and it can be effective in certain scenarios with the use of lethal removal in the area as well. So maybe you have areas that you really can't get into that have a high deer density, but the surrounding area you can get in and remove some deer. It can kind of help. You're using some deer removal around the outskirts and then trying to use some surgical sterilization to slow the growth of the herd in that area. Immunocontraception at this time is not registered for use in New York State. It's been researched and it could still possibly be researched with a scientific research license. Excuse me, but essentially that's what it would be. It's still investigating and looking into it. And there have been some good studies done. But I guess the caveat is until it gets registered for use to be applied broadly, you gotta come up, work at the university and figure out like a novel idea, something that hasn't been tried yet to research it. Last couple of slides I have, just on how a community can go about trying to implement some or all of these options. First, obviously broad public involvement is crucial, and that's sort of what we're doing here this evening. You want to get lots of, valuable feedback from your community, give that to your community leaders so they know what you're feeling and what your thoughts are. And that's going to increase, this understanding among stakeholders. Hopefully in the end, whatever decision is made, it kind of lets everyone see where everybody's coming from and how decisions were made, and allows for maybe less negativity, more understanding, and gives leadership some defense of their decisions. And to accomplish that, you need to be thorough. So, lots of communication, lots of transparency, going to other communities and municipalities that have these programs in place already. The vast majority of that blacked out area that I showed you, they all have some form of deer management program going on currently. So if you have lots of friends and neighbors that you can reach out to ask them how it's going in their communities and in their neighborhoods. This Deer Advisor website is based out of Cornell University, and it has a lot of great tools for communities to use. You can go in there, it can help you develop a deer management plan. It can help you look at different tools and options. It has templates and everything. So I encourage folks to take a look at that as well. So again, education and letting folks know what the process would be, identifying the impacts, talking about the impacts, knowing a little bit about deer biology, and we've pretty kind of done that a little bit today, but researching it more, looking at all the different options that you have and how it might work specifically in your community, those are all things that you need to do in this like initial education phase, which you're starting. So what this would look like, essentially, what we're doing right now, we're recognizing the problem. We're trying to get the awareness out there, we're clarifying it, is there even a problem? What is this exact problem? Trying to figure out what the objective is. A lot of people say we just want to have fewer deer. But why is the number of deer that you currently have a problem? That's what you want to focus on. So it's not necessarily how many deer you have, it's where the impacts from the deer. So we want to reduce deer vehicle collisions, we want to reduce the number of the number of complaints that we're receiving from residents about landscaping or about ticks, tick-borne diseases, or it could be a whole bunch of different things, but those are what you want to kind of pick out and identify as your objectives. Identify the options. We went through some of them today. What are all the options you have available to you? Which ones don't you have available? Which ones maybe have you already tried, aren't going to work, and you can cross them right off. Then you have to select those, and this is where that putting a deer management plan together would start to come into place. Then you would implement the plan. Lots of questions you're gonna have to figure out before that. Who's gonna pay for things? Who's gonna do what? Who needs to be notified? Safety protocols, if there are any. Where are we gonna put more vehicle signs up? Do we need to clear brush away from the roads? We need to put more awareness out there through announcements about ticks in the summer and the spring. So there's a whole lot of things that need to go into play the implementation. And then just evaluating. Every year you need to evaluate. How's it working? Do we need to increase something? Can we get rid of something? Can we back off a little bit because we're doing okay? And then it's just going to be a continual process. And I always throw this slide up when we talk anything about removing deer, because obviously it's not always popular. Often it's unpopular, but there are some things to think about from a perspective. Animals taken with firearms die almost instantly. With a bow or crossbow, it's within seconds if they're taken properly. If you really think about natural deaths in nature, they are not nice. They are not. You've got disease, starvation, you've got animals being preyed upon, being taken down by other animals. It's not a pretty sight. Much worse than a firearm rifle. Deer vehicle collisions are even worse. The majority of deer that are struck by a car, you don't even see them on the road because they drug themselves off the brush, and you might even survive for weeks or months with those injuries. So it's not pretty. Deer removed by culling programs almost always are required to be donated to food banks. There's thousands of pounds donated in Western New York for deer programs. Deer that are killed by vehicles, they typically go to waste. And not that I'm really advocating one way or the other, I'm just saying that deer that die after sterilization, they typically need to be ear tagged because they had drugs and medications they wouldn't consume. But that's not really an issue. I'm just making that clear to everybody. It's just asked quite often. That's really it. And I guess it's just going to be a continuous effort. If you start down this road, you're gonna have to always evaluate it, but you'll get more efficient with it, or you'll know what you tolerate and what you can't. But I guess starting the dialogues is the first step. I'm available for questions.
Just to keep in organized fashion, if anyone has any questions, just want to come forward.
I'll start it off because the reason you're here is me, all right, not him. He wouldn't have called you, invited, bring the issue. You answered a lot of the questions I was gonna ask, you answered in the slide. Great presentation. He just told you that I can give you a hypothetical of 100 deer, way more than that. I can go out in the evening and probably see 60, 70 deer. I seen one field had 30 deer in it. They're just gonna keep multiplying and multiplying, right? You crossed out all the options and we're down to, as bad as people think it is, the bait and shoot is, it's the easiest way to control it. I don't know why we're fighting it. You even said all the other communities around here have addressed it. I know people who live in those communities. I have 3 sons that live in them. They do them, they tell me about it. It's just, it's not a nice thing. I can vouch that the mayor published a paper that he gave to the councilman, and I disagree with everything on it. You just use your personal views in this what you did.
Education.
You expect me to replant my whole yard, you expect me to, wait, I'm talking. You expect me to cover all my shrubs up. My 2 councilmen visited my yard. Is my yard completely destroyed? Am I over exaggerating? Did they eat everything in my yard?
The majority of the plants in your yard show deer eating,
Right.
yes.
And I have, my yard has a 6-foot stockade fence around it. I had a 7-foot deer fence around it for a while till they ran through it and knocked it over. I almost had a deer for you because he got the one trying to get out of there, got caught in it. You know, we've been tangled up. I would have loved to brought it over. But great presentation. All those things you said, the spray, I tried every spray. I tried sound, the kid bought me one of those things, doesn't affect. The deer that are living here now, they stay in the city. They don't go back in what we call the flats or off of 2 Mile Creek where there used to be places for them to go. No place for them to go. I don't blame them. And if we ever develop the Little League, which probably in my lifetime it won't happen, and the rest of all that land will be gone, so it'll just get worse. So, great presentation. You covered it all. If the people were listening, I hope they were. The problem isn't going to go away, just like he said in the meeting at the school for the candidates. Strasburg said, you're kicking the can down the road. All that you're doing is passing it down for somebody else. So it needs to be addressed.
Okay, we have another comment. Come up, or a question.
I'm not sure what area you're referring to, where you live?
I'm motion. Okay.
It is,
Now,
so,
behind me's that 7-foot fence around her yard, and she spent $100 to keep out of the fence.
oh, okay. Well, I have a garden too, and I'm sure the birds eat your garden too, just like everything else, but anyway. I have some notes that I took, and they're not in any particular order, so bear with me. I live on Taylor, but I don't see 60 deer. I see some deer, not 60.
I'm
and
saying.
they're beautiful.
Please don't interrupt.
Don't
Sir, please don't interrupt.
And so these are my questions for you. So do you have a report on any collisions or any complaints or any ticks or anything, or are we not there yet?
We'd have to ask the chief.
That's my first question for the mayor, I guess.
That's the chief. For
Yeah, we'd have to ask the police chief.
Collisions, people complaining about the collisions or ticks or the deer.
Yeah, we have collisions for, we have some unreported, some.
Are they high, low, medium? Your opinion? Or can we get that report?
Good.
Well, do you think they're high, low, medium?
I wouldn't want him to guess. Chief, if you can look.
I'm just
Yeah.
to say, it would be hard to see, because, you know, some go unreported. Sometimes we
Well,
find.
the ones that are reported, maybe?
Just 1 second. Sometimes we find deer dead along the road. We have no idea if they're by a car or not. But as far as reported accidents, you know,
What do you think they are?
they
Within
have
last
their own
year,
report.
okay. So the next is obviously my next one was, is it true someone complained about the garden? Yes, right? My next one was, how did it come about? Okay, so it's never been an issue before, right? a deer, that this has to be an issue? Well,
I'm sure it's been an issue before, I'm sure.
not that I know of, I've lived here all my life. This is now a new issue, we have to. Bring this
Population
up.
is growing all the time.
Pardon?
The population is growing all the time, so. Logic would say that the problem will grow as time goes. That's just pure logic.
Yes.
I mean, my neighbor across the street has 9-foot fences. And they mow her stuff down every single year. And it's unfair to ask residents who want to have a garden in their yard, to spend thousands of dollars every year to replace that.
Okay. The rabbits eat the garden, the birds eat the garden, the moles eat the garden, what are you gonna do?
Not at £5 a day. Per year.
You cover your garden, you do like.
That's where the covered 9-foot garden.
Okay,
I can't speak to
You can come see it.
Tonawanda specifically, but there hasn't been, I mean, in my short amount of time, I don't know any of the other history from Tonawanda. I'm sure there's been conversations over years with the predecessors, but there has been a growing number of communities in the last decade or so that have started down this road that have never had an issue before. Whether that was because I don't know every community individually, but whether that was because they were treating the deer,
right,
maybe there's more people, or maybe there's more deer and more people, or more people that aren't tolerating the deer. I don't know the scenario for each one, but we've been, definitely there's been an increase in communities that have wanted something to address the deer numbers.
so about 2 years ago, I made a request that when we got the darker lights in the city. Streets. That I asked if we could get more deer signs in the city, and they told me no. Nope, cost too much, we can't do it. Right. So please, 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 it would help our city, less collisions, good for everybody, and they shut me down. What do you say to that? Anybody?
Who'd you talk to? I have no idea.
I don't have the name, it was the police chief that retired, he referred me to. On the board, I can't remember who, off the top of my head, but. It's, oh, cost too much, cost too much.
One of the biggest problems of the people, whether they realize or not, they feed the deer. And they do it right in their backyards. They throw carrots out, they feed them with this, they feed them with that. They keep the bird feeders way down low. They knock the bird feeders, so they drop down to eat it. I watch them every night in my backyard. No, I'm talking about, I understand that, but a deer sign's can help a driver. Deer aren't gonna look at the deer signs.
Vipers.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's just for drivers, what I'm saying, right?
But I thought, hell, with the dark streets, I mean, it's biggie, it's huge, it's so dark on our streets. Not to mention the crime, right? We have more crime, darker streets, people can't see the deer. You guys agree to that? More collisions?
I just want to make sure we keep respect of everybody else's time. I'm trying to keep it to 3 minutes, so.
Okay, let me just. One important thing, does this have to be voted on, whatever you guys thinking about doing?
This is only the first stage.
So does it have to be voted on?
I'm sure.
There would have to be action.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Okay. Okay, I'll just pass the mic on. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is John Bless. I live on Brookside. And I probably have a backyard that has more deer in it. than most people in the city. And I'll tell you that after living there for 55 years and 11 years on Allender and Byron, I have coped with the deer. And a lot of it is planting things that deer don't particularly like. A lot of it is planting vegetables that are fenced in. You need an 8-foot fence. If not, they'll jump a 6-foot fence even if it's as small as a pen. Yes, they'll do that. I found a deer sprinkler, motion censored sprinkler, 50 or 60 bucks from any one of the places, Walmart, etc. Is quite effective. I have 2 of them. I've used them for years. I don't have deer in my vegetable garden. I don't have deer in my flower gardens because of using the sprinkler. I'm basically a process person, so I'm thinking, how do we know this is the right thing to do? What kind of data have we gathered in order to make decisions here? And I really don't understand at this point in time where we are in the decision-making process. Are we gathering data to formulate a plan? Do we have a plan? We're just trying to get buy-in. Or are we just trying to inform people about deer and conservation and so forth? The other thing that I wanted to mention was that there's a thing called fertility rebound in deer. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and would you like to tell us a little bit about fertility rebound and what it is?
If it's what I'm thinking you're mentioning, is when you lower deer population, they become more fit, which then increases their fertility. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that when we go into culling deer, be prepared to do it every year.
Oh, yeah, certainly.
You gotta do it every year.
What I was saying about
Don't off this year, and next year you don't have the deer.
the fertility rebound effect, it's a theory, but how much it's really truly impacting anything going on in the landscape is negligible. Deer will, because of the way they've adapted, they will reduce a whole lot of other things before they give up their fertility. You can see that in different deer populations where they're really healthy and fit, they get bigger body sizes. If the does get bigger, they're still producing 2 fawns as compared to somewhere where the habitat's much more poor, that they might be much smaller, but they're still producing 2 fawns because that's their number 1 goal. So, but there is some of that there, but I've heard it brought up quite a few times in a scenario like this. And there's not a lot that shows that it really, like, that's gonna hamper a program. It's not offsetting it, I guess. So.
No, it's just being prepared to do it every year. This is not a one-shot deal. Okay, and that's what I want to confirm from you, because I'm not an expert. So there's a plan here. If we are in the stage of putting together a plan, there is a plan here that was presented by the Northeast on the internet through the Northeast section of the Wildlife Society. In their position statement entitled "Managing Chronically Overabundant Deer" suggests that the following steps to formulating a deer management plan in developed areas. And there's 10 steps. I just like to give it to you.
Thank you so much. I'll forward it to the mayor and council.
Right. And I'm not saying anything that say to negate what anybody else said, because obviously they have their own plan. I'm just talking about my experience over the period of time that I've lived and done a lot of.
Thank you, Mr. Blessed. Any other comments or questions?
Michelle Harrington, 214 Camden. Just have a couple of questions. I'm not one side or the other on this. I have an easement behind me. We have power lines behind us, so I know that they're going to be running no matter what. They're going to be running from the water. They're going to be running in all open areas, even if they are in yards and on streets. What are the numbers of the natural elimination? I know that you did have some percentages and stuff, but have we done any studies on how many deer are populated or will populate in the area? And how many will be eliminated? Who will get the permits and how will that be determined? Where will this culling be allowed, or how will the areas be identified? What does it cost to the city and the taxpayers? Is there and is there any protected land? Like we have that big development off of River Road, which is town I know, but they have really taken over a lot of the space, the wildlife space. So does the DEC have any protected area where they may be able to go to? Or will they be relocated? Or will they be kind of pushed in one direction? I know when you put up the signs, normally when I'm driving down 219 in South Towns, it's because they're always running across a certain road. Or whatever they're called. So just wondering if all of this information was coming together, this study, you know, how long is this going to take and how much is it gonna cost us to have someone do the study? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'm probably not the one to answer most of those as far as process, you know, but I'll, you know, as far as this is about, as far as we had one meeting back in December, something like that. Yeah, just a brief conversation back in December, very brief. And then pretty much this year. So as far as DEC's role, I mean, this is really where we're at as far as my standpoint goes. So, and that's what my presentation was, just to put it all out there. And it's really the community and municipality that come up with what they want to do, bring it back to us. I'm available for, you know, anything about questions off me as they go through the process, but none of that's really occurred yet. You know, it's pretty much the first step from my end. You mentioned relocating, that just come up, you know, we have deer everywhere we need deer and want deer as many as we need. And there's obviously, it's not extremely great for the deer, you're displacing them, but also there's disease issues and there's just not enough open space somewhere where we would relocate deer, so that's really not an option. Trying to think what your other question was. Costs, I wouldn't know specifically for Tonawanda, but it varies so much because different communities take different approaches. Some of them are purely using volunteers. It's some people who really have a passion for it, for helping the community and helping reduce the deer herd, and they volunteer their time and a lot of time. So there's obviously still some costs, supplies, things like that, but you know, some are using volunteers, some are using their law enforcement, obviously they're getting paid for that, so I don't know what that budget looks like for them, but you'd have to work that out. But probably everything from cost of nothing for labor to a lot of costs for labor is all on the spectrum. Sure.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sheasley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night.
Outside if you want to say anything.
Yep.